of the landscape. I'm dreaming that it's my last night with the humans. We're lying on the big wooden table in the middle of the lab in which they created me. The humans have their arms wrapped around my body, both the part of it that is human and the part of it that is horse. Some of them are hugging it tightly, while others are tenderly caressing it. They're all exhausted, yet fighting to stay awake. I feel their tears on my skin and hair, and through their sobbing, I hear them speaking in low voices. They're talking about me, how proud of me they are, and how they hope I will succeed out there. I keep quiet and just observe them, with a sense of deep gratitude and utter strangeness. We're kin and worlds apart. Next, we're walking up a ramp and stop in front of a steel gate that opens up to the outside. The humans gather on each side of me with their hands resting on my flanks. Nobody says anything. Then one of the humans come around to face me. She reaches up to take my hands, and I kneel down on my forelegs. We hold hands as she looks me in the eyes with love and affection. She tries to smile, but ends up crying. "It's your world now," she says through the tears. "Walk it with care." She gives my hand a long, hard squeeze as she kisses my lips before she turns around and removes the crossbars that keep the gate locked. As the doors open, a wave of sensory impressions greets me. I take a step forward, and in an instant the humans and the lab disappear like they were never there. I'm standing in the middle of a field surrounded by an abundance of crops oozing a blue liquid. I do not recognize the crops from the information that the humans provided to me, yet I feel intensely connected to these organisms. It is like we are one and the same body. Even more, my life depends on them. I pick one up, and I feel the blue liquid flowing onto my hands, down my arms until it eventually covers my entire torso. I realize this is the outside. I am at home. Then I wake, in darkness and in pain. My whole body is sore from all the falls I have taken walking through this new environment that is the outside. Also, my skin is burning from its exposure to the sun, and my stomach is aching from a lack of food. The outside is not what I imagined, and I'm struggling with the fact that this is my world. I'm still at a loss about what I should do and where I should go, about how I fit into this world. I'm resting underneath the long, dense branches of one of the trees that stand singularly scattered around the landscape in large numbers. The humans told me about the growth, but I was not made familiar with these particular trees, yet I find some ease here, like I'm protected from the challenges the outside presents. Despite the darkness, I can hear how the branches are beginning to become less dense, giving off a sucking sound as the leaves are folding in on themselves until they are just small, shiny, multicolored buds. The trees do this every day when the sun rises. During the day, these buds reflect the sharp sunlight, turning the trees into a disorienting, flickering phenomenon. I do not know how or why this process takes place, but if there's one thing I've learned about the outside, it is that it is always changing. Nothing is permanent in this world that I now inhabit. Not even me. I'm noticing spots of white in different sizes and shapes appearing on my skin, from my hands to my torso and perhaps also my face. I wonder if they're somehow connected to the dark spots on my coat as an effect of how I was made. I have also noticed how the hairs on my coat have begun to grow up my back, and I can feel how the same type of stiff hair is beginning to grow on my cheeks and down my neck. At first, I became worried about these changes, thinking that they indicated something was wrong with my body, but I've learned to embrace them as part of who I am and even find them somewhat fascinating. I get up and walk out from underneath the branches until I can see far in each direction. I've decided to change my path and walk north with the sun in my back. What I hope to find there, I'm not exactly sure of, but I know that my explorations of the outside so far have only led to further adversity and bewilderment. I start walking. I notice that the trees become fewer and fewer the further I travel, until at some point there are no longer any trees in sight. I'm now walking in fields of tall grass that reaches above my horseback. The blades are sharp and cut my skin, and small insects flock aggressively around the bleeding cuts. It stings, and I try to increase my pace, but beneath my hooves the ground is becoming more and more moist, turning to mud, which makes it hard to walk at all. Fortunately, the fields of grass begin to thin out. I increase my pace, but only to suddenly find myself up to my neck in a sea of mud. I can no longer tell if I'm still walking or if I'm in fact swimming, or if I'm moving at all. The feeling of the cool mud on my skin comforts me, and I give in to the urge to stop moving my legs and arms and just let the mud carry me further. I am overpowered by exhaustion and lose the fight to keep my eyes open, falling into a deep sleep. I dream that it's my first encounter with the other centaurs. I'm standing at the edge of a pine tree forest, and in the distance I see something coming towards me. At first, I cannot tell what it is, but my senses react, not with fear, but with a pleasant, reassuring sensation. Then I discover that it's another centaur. Unlike me, she's clothed. Her human body is covered in a brown material, and across her horseback she is carrying what looks like 2 containers. "Welcome. We've all been anticipating your arrival," she says, and holds her arms out towards me. "Come here. Let me feel you." She grabs my shoulders and lets her hands run down my arms. She holds my hands for a moment before she lets go and carefully examines my intersection area. As she runs her fingers through the stiff hair on my back, I notice that she smiles. "You're so beautiful," she whispers. Then she takes my hand and says, "We need to go. We have a long way ahead of us." "Where are we going?" I ask. "To the sea, of course," she replies. "That's where we live now, and that's where you're needed." We start walking through an increasingly chaotic landscape. Strange plants emerge from the soil all around us and morph into each other to create new plants, which again morph with each other. The seemingly endless process is accompanied by a loud buzzing noise from swarms of flying, long-legged insects that seem to live inside the plants. I cover my ears to withstand the sensation. Then suddenly the noise stops, and I look around to discover that we are standing in the middle of something that looks like a field of crops. "Have you tried to eat yet?" the other centaur asks me. I nod my head. I have, but I haven't been able to hold any of it down. It's like my stomach's rejected. "I know what you mean," she says, and bends down, picking something up from the ground. "This is what you'll be living off from now on," she says, and shows me an oblong bluish vegetable with prickles covering most of its skin. "What is it?" I ask. "It's one of the wonders of the growth that produces the fluid." "The fluid?" "Let me show you," she says, and opens the vegetable by forcing the top part open. Out of the vegetable shoots a flower-like thing attached to the vegetable by a tubular stem. "Kiss it," she says. I take the flower in my hands, bring it to my head, and open my mouth. The flower wraps itself around my head and becomes hard. I briefly try to fight it, but then a warm liquid enters through my mouth and starts flowing out into every part of my body. Just breathe through it, I hear her say, and I feel how the liquid starts to transform my system until it is abruptly sucked back into the flower. You're ready now, she says. I can hear the sea, I say, the flower still wrapped around my head. That's because we are near. But I can also hear something else. It's a familiar sound, but much louder. It's your family. They're coming to receive you. Then I'm awake again. The current has carried me to a sandy shore. I'm still neck deep in the mud, but I manage to get my footing on and walk onto land. Covered in mud, I stand on the shore for a while, feeling the warmth of the sun drying the mud until it eventually begins to fall off my body in pieces. I close my eyes, and in the flickering spots behind my eyelids, I see a large herd of centaurs approaching me. They fill the entire horizon, but as they get closer, they gradually dissolve into a burst of bright light. I rise up on my hind legs and spread my arms to take in the light, and as the rays hit my body, it washes over me as a sensation of love.